Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So for today, we are going to be doing the drawing your OCs in my style type of video, and it's been quite a long time since I've done one of these. These ones were actually from the previous session, which is about 5 months ago, and these were from the Discord. But today I'm going to be looking through my Instagram tags, like I let you guys know I think last week about this. So I went ahead and chose about 6 this time instead of 3. So we are going to be starting off with this OC, which is by 19M011 underscore or 19M011 underscore. And this is their OC Amaris? I'm not sure how to pronounce your OC's name, and I do apologize if that's not their name, but I really wanted to draw this character, first of all, because I like the kind of more monochromatic kind of color palette. So I'm gonna let you guys know in advance that for the next draw your OC in my styles video, I would like to still continue to pick from Instagram, just because there's a way for you guys to put kind of like a plethora amount of references in one post, like up to 10. So it makes it a little bit easier if you guys have close-ups or other OCs also hidden in those posts. It's just very fun to look at, and it's nice to choose from. So in the future, I will be still using this tag. So if you would like to submit more of your OCs, you can submit them then, and you can put it under that hashtag. And if you're not sure what the hashtag is, you can just look in the description and I'll have it there or on the screen. So like I mentioned, I really like this OC first because of the kind of monochromatic color palette. I also love the design of this kind of almost like, I don't know how to explain it, kind of like the black abyss kind of looking pattern on her skin alongside with the many eyes. So it was very compelling, and I kind of wanted to give that a shot. So a lot of these OCs are gonna have kind of like, I think it's more particular this one, kind of a different eye style compared to how I usually draw them for these kinds of videos. I'm just gonna move my mic, apologies about that. And the reason is that I don't want to stray too far away from the design of the person's OC, and a lot of the times their style is going to influence how their character is going to look. So to kind of make sure that the character still looks like the character that I'm drawing, I'm going to make some choices that might be more akin to that person's style, just because it makes a little bit more sense. It's the same thing, and I think I mentioned about this in a previous video. It's like if you draw a character has like very deadpan eyes, but you draw very like cutesy, very shoujo-esque eyes, it doesn't really make sense to keep the shoujo big eyes for someone who has like a very deadpan eyes, because it just doesn't really fit the character. I feel like there's some adjustments you can make that would fit it, but you know, just if you make fan art of certain characters or pre-existing characters, it's good to keep some of those aspects of the character still intact when drawing it in your own style. So I'm gonna try my best to do that so I can keep the integrity of the people's OCs kind of intact, if anything. So for the template, so I remembered I made this template quite a while ago for, I'm not sure if it's a previous draw this OC in my style video or for something else, but I found it, and I'm going to be using this template to do all 6 because it makes it a little bit easier for me to clip the character onto the canvas, plus to change the background to be more appropriate with the character's color palette. So for this OC, I did kind of stick more with the muted purple for the background, and please stick to the end, or you know, whatever you want to do to see the actual colors of the drawing, because sometimes the camera has a hard time picking it up. But in terms of process, it's pretty much the same. So I did do the background color. Sometimes, like for the most part, I put that in first, and then I go ahead and pick the kind of skin tone for the character. And this time I decided to block in the entirety of the character first, and then we can alpha lock it, then put every color on top afterwards. It just makes it a little bit easier. Right now I'm already on the rendering phase, so I already went ahead and merged my layers after changing the sketch color to be more appropriate, and I'm going ahead and cleaning these up a little bit. So these are going to be sketches rather than like full-on drawings. I think in the future, if I have any that I would like to make actual full-on drawings, maybe I have to have the full body or something showing, maybe I will do like 1 or 2 in a video, but for now, because I'm doing 6, I'm gonna leave it a little bit on the more like of a rendered sketch, if anything. And in terms of the length of the video, I decided to keep about 5 minutes per character, so I apologize that these might be going by really fast, but thank you for 19M011 for submitting your character. I really adore this kind of concept and the color palette for this character. It's really cool, very chic feeling, but also love the assortment of eyes on the rest of her body. So yeah, really cool OC, and thank you for letting me draw your OC. So moving on, we have this particular OC, and this one is by Snuffle with 3 Fs _ and they have this OC, which I haven't really drawn a character like this in terms of, I guess, a little bit of their demeanor, or at least how I kind of interpreted their demeanor, as well as kind of like the hairstyle and a little bit of the clothing, though I didn't really show too much of the clothing because I was doing mostly headshots for all of these. But I wanted to try my best to do kind of like the buzzed look, or kind of that really short hair on a character, because I tend to draw longer hair on characters, if anything. So I wasn't too sure on how I wanted to draw some of these characters, so I tried to pick ones that kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone depending on the design. So yeah, I wanted to give this one a go, and kind of for the top row of these OCs, I picked ones that had a little bit more of a, I wouldn't say like a darker monochromatic. It does feel a little bit more of muted colors, and you'll see kind of compared to the other 3 I'm gonna do on the bottom that these ones might seem a little bit more subdued colors, a little bit more a tiny bit more like monochromatic, and I feel like it might be because of the color choice I put for the background as well. But I actually really like this character. I do love the piercings and the snake bites, and I believe the snake bites were not optional. They were very much had to draw them in very much for the character, and I was excited to kind of do that because I don't draw piercings a lot in places other than the ears, so it's kind of nice being able to draw like snake bites and occasionally like eyebrow piercings or anything like that. So about the OC, so his name is Naoki Furuya. So he has pyrokinesis, which is very cool, and I tried my best to give him a little bit more of an intense look, just because it seems like, according to the OC, he has like a killer rank, so he seems like somebody who's into either like fighting or has to do some kind of defending or defeating of something. So I wanted to give him more an intense look, and I decided to go with the red eyes, which happens to be, I guess, like maybe their alternate form instead of the normal kind of black eyes. And if I did the black eyes, I think I would have kept it closer to how they drew the eyes for their OCs, kind of more like pure pitch black. I feel like it fits the demeanor of the character a little bit more, but also, like I said, I want to kind of keep the integrity of the character a little bit instead of like completely converting it into my style, because I feel like I always have that worry that I tend to draw characters much more cutesy and almost like same face if I start to not really think about varying it up. Like I tend to have a default, so to try to avoid that, I'm trying my best to reference the character as much as I can when I can, in terms of being able to translate certain things into my style. So back to the kind of like the process of drawing. So I did kind of change up the sketch color to be a little bit more warmer towards his face, a little bit darker around his hair and some of his outfit. I went ahead and changed that to multiply, merged it down to my colors, and then we're going ahead and kind of sprucing it up. So for a lot of these, especially for kind of sketches where I don't feel like I'm going to render it all the way till like it's completely finished, usually when I'm doing the outlines for the characters, I'm kind of choosing a much darker color and matching it a little bit, but just much more of a bolder, intense color so that it stands out without being kind of like washed out, and it kind of gives it a little bit more of a punchier look rather than it looking too washed out, which I feel like it tends to look like that if I don't end up changing the sketch color, or if I change the sketch color to be too light. So yeah, that's kind of like the little progress or process for this one. And thank you again to Snuffle or Snuffle underscore for submitting your OC. And hopefully I didn't butcher him too much. Yeah, it's kind of my first time drawing a character that has more of like buzzed hair, if anything. So moving on, I was super excited to do this one. First, I love the color palette, the white hair with the skin tone as well, just super pretty. So for this OC, so this is by wafflewaifu.png. I just realized now that I'm reading the username, I don't believe I put the username on the top of this one, so I do apologize. I'll make sure to include that at the very end. But yeah, I don't think I remembered to write it at the very top, just because I decided to split the first session and the second session onto 2 different days, and I think when I finished this one I forgot to write the username, so apologies about that. But this one's by wafflewaifu.png, and they have this really adorable OC. I'm already a sucker for like turtlenecks, but also the color combination of a dark green turtleneck with kind of like the, I guess like a tan or brown or light brown, I guess, apron looks really pretty, but also the hair color with the texture alongside with the eye color and just the contrast with the skin, I think is just really lovely for the character. So I really wanted to give my go at drawing this character. Now I do apologize, I don't draw a lot of characters who have very like tight knit curly hair, so I do apologize if this doesn't read entirely correctly. I don't draw people too much with like 4C hair or just like really tight curls, or I forget what they're called. I don't do box braids often either. I feel like I've only done a handful for commissions, so I don't know if this is a good way to kind of simplify some of the forms. I did end up sketching a lot of just some texture and some strands here and there and just trying to kind of fill out the form. There's gonna be another character where I really simplify the sketch, but I tried my best to fill in a lot of that texture and kind of the form of the hair and just like how it's, I feel like it's kind of separated into different, either the locks or the different sections by color and by doing that with value rather than doing it by lines, because I feel like sometimes that's a little bit more confusing for myself. So to kind of fit for the character, I kind of chose a pale muted green for the background. I'm going ahead and choosing kind of a mid-tone brown and placing that as kind of the overall color for the character so I can alpha lock it later. And luckily, because all these layers are layer clipped to my template, I don't have a problem with a lot of the bleeding of the colors outside of my rectangles that I have pre-made. And yeah, so I highly recommend that if you would like to see the finished result for this one, stick until the end so you can see it, because my camera has the hardest time capturing kind of like the contrast between this character's colors. So even like the whites of the eyes and the blue for their eyes appear too bright, but I didn't want my camera to darken the skin to the point where I can't see it via the recording, so I did brighten it quite a bit via my camera, but it means like a lot of the lighter areas get very washed out, so apologies if it kind of switches back and forth. But I did try my best to make sure that this character I don't know, resembled the character that you had here. I do apologize that the hair isn't probably super correct, but I do think this character is super cute. I also love the freckles across their face. It's super adorable. Yeah, so I don't have too much to talk about the character other than my struggles with the hair. I feel like also, I talked about this in a previous video, so not only was the texture a little bit hard for me to figure out a way to kind of simplify or to translate in a way that I don't have to go into like full detail of drawing all like strands and all that. The idea of white hair is just harder for me because I tend to think of hair color a little bit more like I have a base color, I have my shadows, I have my highlights, and it helps me have a little bit more of a way to show dimension by having the contrast between the highlights and the shadows. But when I do white hair, if I don't place like an off-white, most likely I'm not going to be able to put like a proper highlight in the same way that people usually do, like in a band. So I I tried my best to kind of depict the hair only with the shadow colors and kind of creating the texture by layering some grays, a little bit more of that muted beige color. I added a little bit of that green into some of the beige, which produced more of that gray color, but hopefully it reads a little bit correctly. I would like to do some studies of more curly hair that's a little bit more of like 4C texture. I've definitely done a few of them that were a little bit more of looser curls compared to this, so I apologize like once again that if this looks a little bit too messy or shaggy from how I rendered it. So yeah, apologies. I'll make sure to put the name at the very end. So thank you again to Waffle Waifu for submitting your OC. They were very lovely to draw, and I apologize if I butchered them. So next up, the kind of last three I have are a little bit on the brighter side in terms of their color palette. They have a little bit more of like a, I don't know, like punchier color palette in a way. I definitely subdued this one a little bit, but this one is by Swaying from Season to Season, and this is their OC Miok. So yeah, just a very kind of more in my wheel of, what am I saying? It's kind of a little bit more towards the type of people or type of characters I tend to draw, which tends to be a little bit more softer, cuter characters. So I didn't really have too hard of a time. I do apologize if I don't end up drawing his hair entirely correctly. I did kind of do a bit of like shaping of his hair, and then I went ahead and kind of shaved it down again, puffed it up, shaved it down, because I didn't really want to get the hair to be too flat. He has a very cute hairstyle. It's very kind of round and puffy, so it's very cute. But yeah, I have him drinking his drink because I believe he likes like a blueberry juice. So I decided to put that in because it also kind of helps to match his eye color, because I was either gonna make the background kind of like the very poppy bright blue, or I was gonna make it a little bit more of a subdued kind of like beige orangey color. And if I didn't have the drink in the actual drawing, I probably would have picked a different background color, but because the drink is present, I don't feel like I wanted to take away the intensity of the eye color, so I decided that I would just make the background color to be a little bit more warmer and similar to his overall color palette minus the blue. So that's kind of the choice. I ended up doing the background color last anyways because I kind of forgot, because this is the beginning of the second session and I kind of just jumped in, started to draw, and I wanted to kind of ease myself into another drawing, so I did keep it a little bit more simple for this one. But he's a very cute character. I really love the color palette being very kind of soft, a little bit more earthy, but then you have that pop of kind of that nice kind of like very saturated kind of dark blue color, which I actually really like this color for an eye color for characters. I think it's a little bit different from just giving them that standard kind of light blue kind of cyan colored for eyes and stuff. I just think this is very cute. It's very intense, but I feel like it fits nicely with your character's color palette, which I think is also very cute. So yeah, for the hair color, so for blonde hair, I do struggle a little bit. I tend to also draw a lot of colors from the overall color palette into the hair so that it makes it fit a little bit better, because whenever I do kind of blonde hair, I always have the worry of making it too monochromatic or too brown, if that makes sense. Because as you shade kind of like a light yellow, a very soft yellow, and you kind of intensify going either, I guess, more towards red or more towards kind of like orangey colors, I don't want it to read very brown, if anything. So I did take a little bit of kind of like that blue color from his eyes, lightly go over the hair, and then we kind of got this kind of misty purpley grayish color in his hair, which I think helps a little bit in terms of shaping his hair, but also giving it less of that flat color. So I definitely wanted to do that. His hair color is on the lighter side, so I didn't want to lose my highlight color once again. So I decided to take a very light kind of cyanish blue color and kind of do a little bit of an outline around the highlights so that I could see it a little bit better towards the top, because I just wanted it to stand out just a little bit. So hopefully it doesn't look too off, and I didn't butcher your character here either. He's very cute. So like I said, he's kind of more of my aesthetic that I tend to like to draw. So it's kind of like an easier one for me to kind of ease myself into the next 2 drawings. Because I was feeling a little bit hesitant on doing 6 characters, just because I feel like I don't spend enough time on each of them for you guys to view, so I do apologize. I think all of these were about half an hour to 45 minutes each, so yeah, I wanted to make sure I give each of them kind of an even amount, just because it would be much more easier to kind of delegate time, as well as I don't want to put too much effort into one and then leave one other one very simple or very like feels unfinished. But moving on, so thank you again for swaying from season to season, for submitting your OC, and then we are moving on to Serenity Art. So it's Serenity Art with a 1 in the middle, or Serenity Art _ So they have this lovely OC, and the color palette is what drew me in like right away. The colors just match so nicely. So I will show the kind of reference on the screen when I'm introducing the character, so you can go back and check. But they have this really pretty kind of almost like a dark teal turquoise, almost more blue kind of navy colored hair, but then they have a striking kind of red top with yellow sleeves with a pretty pattern. Also, the background that you chose matches the eyes, and I really love it. So it's super cute, super pretty. Love the color palette and how kind of punchy it is. But once again, I'm gonna be struggling a little bit with one, kind of balancing the colors for myself, just because I tend to choose bright colors right off the bat, I feel like, so the intensity of the colors might be a little wonky. But then this is the character I was talking about, that I kind of sectioned the hair in a certain way and then kind of did an outline for certain chunks of the hair, or for certain sections of the hair. And then I'm going to try my best to kind of build up the texture or the actual kind of like the form of the hair a little bit more when I actually start to chunk in the color and add the highlights, so that we can see only, you know, some individual strands, but then see the overall shape a little bit more easily. So I do have like a slight gripe with this particular piece, because I wasn't I don't know if I wasn't like fully there when drawing, or for some reason I just switched gears. So initially when I was sketching out this character, I was gonna have them kind of front facing entirely, which made sense for how I started off with the guidelines. Now, I don't know if it's because I started to shift the eyes to look to the right of the canvas that I suddenly changed the position of her head, and when I changed the position of the head, it's kind of screwed things up, because I suddenly made it into more of a 3/4 view, but I placed the eyes in a way that it was supposed to be straight on. So the neck position's kind of off and it looks a little weird. I have the nose and the mouth facing more or less 3/4, but technically the eyes feel like they're facing a little bit more just like front and center, with the pupils, or not the pupils, the irises shift to the right. So I do apologize that like the entire head might feel a little bit off compared to the rest of the body. At some point I think I shifted the neck as well down along with the head, so that she doesn't have a super long neck. Yeah, I don't know why it became like that, but that's what happened. But I'm gonna try my best to kind of redeem myself a little bit by coloring and hopefully spending a little bit more time kind of sprucing up the drawing a little bit. But it doesn't hide the fact that a lot of the anatomy here is very wonky, and I do apologize about that. But I did have a fun time kind of experimenting whether or not I can do the hair texture kind of like this, or if I should chunk in a little bit of bigger chunks and made the sections a little bit more apparent of each individual lock of hair, if that makes sense, or each individual, like, I guess like vertical section of hair, and then section them off a little bit more evenly throughout the hair, so that the texture looks more of a, I don't know what this is considered. I feel like I should research the name of the hair a little bit more, because I know this is not box braids. I'm not sure if these are twists. I do apologize for my lack of information here. I tried my best to add as much texture to kind of kind of make the hair seem like the actual proper way that it's gonna look, because I didn't want them to look like braids. I didn't want them to look like just straight natural hair, so I wanted to make sure that they look a little bit more resembling to maybe how your character has their hairstyle. I'm sorry if I didn't draw it super correctly. So it's kind of like a back and forth of adding shadows, adding highlights, adding a little bit more back into that mid-tone to kind of cut back into the shadows so that I could get a more uniform texture in some areas. I also added a little bit of the skin tone into certain parts of her hair so it matches a little bit better. But yeah, this one is their OC from Serenity Art _ and thank you for letting me draw your OC. I am severely sorry if I butchered her, but I absolutely love the color palette. Super, super pretty. Also love the eye color alongside with the rest of the outfit. Super cute. So, moving on to our last OC that we are going to be drawing, and this is by chickens _art_. Now, I might have written this one wrong now that I'm reading the name again. Do apologize. I'll make sure that's correct at the very end. But this is their OC, and this is their OC Yukio. So, I like the color orange. Maybe it's because I'm in kind of more that fall autumn mood. So this one has a very kind of like punchy color palette, very orange forward, very yellow, very warm. It's very cute. I did not include the dog in the drawing. I do apologize. I am not comfortable drawing animals that often. Unless I'm like, I need to for like a commission or something, then maybe I will. But for the most part, I do struggle stylizing animals for a lot, especially without like proper reference and stuff. So I did not include the dog. But for the OC, because I didn't do like a front facing one for the other two on the bottom, I decided to make this one more front facing. I also wanted to showcase the earring on the one side because I thought it was a very cute design, but I didn't want it to be covered up by the hands because I decided on the pose without looking at the reference too closely. So I did want to include the earring in some way, so I kind of have it popped into the front over the hands and kind of like in front of the face. And then after that, I decided to put in the sweater, which is super cute and very chunky, kind of very patchwork like, and it's very cute. I apologize, I'm gonna say cute a lot. I really do love drawing your guys' OCs, and I apologize that I haven't been drawing them. I think it's been like 5 months since the last one, but hopefully maybe sometime next month I'll do another session where I'll draw your guys' OCs again, just because I know a lot of you guys submitted your OCs, so I would like to do a few more so you guys can get an opportunity, but also to kind of challenge myself to draw a variety of other characters, because in the future, like I said, I would like to do some that are, maybe we can do like a full body or more like waist up kind of full illustration for a character or two. That, or I like to do one maybe of chibi versions, could be fun. It's another way I can also kind of throw in the entire outfit or full body of the character, so that could be another fun way. But I'll definitely do another where I'll do like a sketching session, because I know some people submitted OCs that only have are kind of like pencil sketches, so there's no color or anything. So I can definitely include some of those as well, and I'll just also do that in a sketching style or keep it monochromatic if anything. So so color palette wise, I'm keeping things still very orange and warm. I could have done a more contrasting background, but I like the color palette to be very orange and very fun, very autumn-ish. I also like the fact that the eyes are more gray. If anything, I think it's because like everything around your OC is very bright. I do kind of like the more kind of like subdued eye color. It just fits a lot because not everything's like blaring in your face. But also the hairstyle. So I was a little bit hesitant with the hairstyle here too, because I wasn't sure how to draw the kind of like swirl in the front of your OC's kind of like bangs or fringe, because I don't know if I wanted to add like a lot more like hair strands here and there, or did I want to keep it very stylized and very simple. But I think it's reading okay, maybe. I'm not too sure. I feel like it fits your style super well because you have a very clean, very kind of round art style. But I'm not sure if I drew it in a way that reads right for my approach, so I do apologize. It kind of looks a little funky, but like I said, the color palette, super fun. I did add kind of like a muted purplish brown grayish color into the shadows for the orange so that I could kind of knock it back a little bit. But I also love adding a little bit of that kind of cooler tone color that's a little bit more muted, especially to areas that are a little bit more warm. Has a little bit more of that contrast between the colors. But onto the process. We already merged the layers, and I'm going ahead and doing what I said earlier, where I'm taking kind of a darker color and kind of like sprucing up corners, outlines, and the line work in general so that it appears a little bit more clean, just because similar to how I sketch, if I start to kind of spruce up or darken lines that I want them to stand out, a lot of my looser, kind of more sketchy lines kind of get pushed back a little bit, and it kind of helps because those lines are already kind of more muted, a little bit lighter in color, so they don't kind of pop out too much. But yeah, thank you for chickens_art_ for submitting your OC, which I think is super cute. I love the orange theme too, and the fact that your character is very round and very, I don't know, like patchwork, very cozy aesthetic, so very cute. I'll make sure to add the corrections at the very end, but thank you guys very much for submitting your OCs for me to draw. Like I mentioned, I will be doing a few more in the future, at least, hopefully, and I'll show you guys the quick time lapse for all of these alongside with a few close-ups. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I definitely think the top row feels a little bit more monochromatic, a little bit more subdued, a little bit kind of, I don't know, not earthy colors, but just a little bit of a more muted color palette, while the ones on the bottom have a little bit more of that brighter, punchier color. Either, you know, just like accent colors, or the overall color palette was a little bit brighter. So hopefully I got a okay variety of their color palette, also types of characters that I drew today. I do want to try some other characters in the future that aren't like, I guess, like typical human OCs maybe. I'll like to do some other ones, so we'll see if we can get there. But here is the quick time lapse. I'll have some close-up time lapses at the very end, but thank you again, you guys, for submitting your OCs, and I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video. Bye!